Isla says, what would be a hearty, delicious, and most importantly, petite size mango treat?
Well, hardy, there isn't one. So you have to do what I just told you. You have to protect a mango tree if it's going to get cold. Um, Delicious mangoes, like I told you, there are a lot of mango cultivars out there. Many of them I don't think are worth the trouble or the lawn space. It depends. If you've got a little tiny yard, you're going to have to decide what you think is the best mango. And any of those 8 that I listed for you can be contained, and you can have wonderful mangoes from them. And there are a lot of others. Like I mentioned Glen briefly. That's a good all-purpose mango. CC Love is another good mid-season mango. It's another Julie seedling. We didn't talk a lot about late mangoes. There aren't a lot of late mangoes. Kit is very good. There's a new one called Little Gem, and this is a small tree. It's another Julie seedling, but it fruits almost as late as Kit does, and it's got all of the disease resistance and other features that you would want. And as long as you're here at that time of year, then Little Gem is great and it is available.
Okay. The next question we have is from Angel, and he said, we put in 6 mangoes last May, 2 early, 2 mid, and 2 late blooming. They are all super healthy and have flushed and flushing a lot. Should I be pruning back now? I'm concerned that they're getting very dense.
Yeah, you should go in and thin those trees out. Go back and look at that picture of the perfect mango, and that's what you want to do. You just get in there and whittle out branches until you're getting light down into the middle of your tree. If you've got a strong central leader in that tree, you want to cut it out. You mostly want to try and create a vase-shaped tree. With all of that light that's getting down into the tree makes for a lot sweeter fruit. And the best way to see that is to go online and look at all the videos and diagrams of how to prune a peach tree, because it's exactly the same thing.
Great. Okay, our next question is from Julietta. So she's got a couple questions here. The first one is mango anthracnose. Which mangoes get it? Why? When? Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Turpentine and Hayden both brought anthracnose genes to the table. So when you're looking at mangoes, look up their history, and you can see that Hayden has a lot of trouble with anthracnose. But a Hayden seedling called Kent, which is a delicious mango, has horrible problems with anthracnose. And I don't recommend that anyone plant that. If you put even a Kit, which is another in the Hayden lineage, in a place where it's in shade and it's getting a lot of water on the leaves and the fruit, it will get anthracnose. But if you keep it trimmed and you keep it out in full sun and you do what I told you about the mango calendar, Kit will make perfect fruit. So I don't have a problem with Kit. We talked about lemon zest, and Gary's concerned about anthracnose on it. But all of the ones I saw this year, and I tried to see some from several different growers, there wasn't an anthracnose problem. So I suspect that it's probably wet years, and that if you just follow that spray regimen, you won't have a problem.
Okay. Her next question is polyembryonic seeds. Can we clone our mangoes without grafting? And our native mangoes, the Florigans, could we create new native varieties?
Okay. There's a lot in there. First of all, growing mangoes from seed guarantees that you have a natural root system and nothing to impede growth. So yes, you can grow them. They will be gigantic trees. They will be like wild type mango trees, and they will be very hard to keep down. In the Philippines, all of the carabaos are grown from seedlings. It's a seedling strain, just like turpentine is. But they have very cheap labor, and they end up putting up scaffolds to be able to pick the fruit when they come on. I don't think you want to go there, and there's nothing wrong with grafted trees. And the graft union is what makes it possible to bring these trees down out of the sky, because it slows down the transfer of products of photosynthesis from the leaves to the roots. So you want grafted trees. You really do. Florigon is not native. It is an Indian type mango, and I don't see any reason to grow it as a seedling strain. Florigon is a good variety. It has a little bit of trouble with anthracnose. And there were actually 4 seedlings, 1 through 4, named Florigon number 1, 2, 3, 4. And to my taste, Florigon number 4 is the best of the lot, but the commonly available one is Florigon number 1. Now, the reason Florigon number 4 is not commonly available is because it is super difficult to graft. It's just not worth a nurseryman's time to try and propagate that tree. I know where they are, but there are not a lot of them.
Okay. William is asking, he says, I live in Maryland. Can I grow mangoes here? A neighbor has banana plants.
If you mulch bananas in Maryland, they'll freeze back, but they'll come right back up. Remember, a banana is not a tree, it's a giant herb. So it's a different growth thing. You could conceivably get fruit for a few years on a potted mango tree, but you'd have to bring it in before it gets cold, because mangoes, like I told you, aren't hardy.
Okay, and Claudia had another question about, or we have another question from about small trees from Claudia. So how possible is it to get a small tree for small spaces that produce good fruit? So I think you answered that already, but do you have anything else to add?
Little Gem, CC Love are both really small. They fit into a little area. This is probably a good point to talk about the fact that you want to plant smaller rather than larger trees. And I mean nursery stock. If you plant a 3-gallon tree, you will get fruit in about the same amount of time as if you plant a 25-gallon tree. But that 25-gallon tree was a 1-gallon, and then a 3-gallon, and a 7-gallon, and a 15-gallon, and it's got successive layers of root binding. This is unavoidable. If you plant from a 3-gallon tree, you've only got one central part of root binding, and a mango can overcome that. And you'll get a lot nicer tree a lot faster with a 3-gallon tree.
Okay. The next question we had from Twyla, well, it was a comment that the Hayden fruit is delicious and beautiful. And she asked, how old is that tree? And I think the tree she was referring to was that picture that you showed of a indoor tree in Japan.
Mm-hmm. That's probably a 7 or 8 year old tree, but it looked like that and bore like that when it was 4. The good thing about the Japanese is they actually will tell you how they do stuff, whereas the Chinese will not tell you anything. So we have to, when we see the Chinese doing something interesting, we have to figure out what they did, but the Japanese just publish it and we find out. It's real easy. So that's why what you're getting from me about how to grow these trees came from the Japanese literature, not the Chinese.
Okay. And Twyla also wanted to know if you could speak more about cutting down the new tree when it will then sprout. So location of where you make that cut, and presumably she's saying it would be above the graft. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. If you pick up a mango tree at a nursery and look at it from the soil line up, you will see a place 5 or 6 inches up where there's a trunk deformity. It's a little wider on the bottom side of the deformity and a little more narrow on the top, and it generally goes in a ring around the trunk, and that's the graft union. And what you want to do is look at this tree that you're picking out, and you want to go up at least a foot, but not much more, and you want to look where there's a dense ring of leaves. And then you'll see at that dense ring of leaves, there's more growth coming up out of it. That's a ring bud. And if you cut out above that dense ring of leaves, then you've got a whole bunch of little buds hidden there in the leaf axils, and your new growth will come out of that. And you're going to clip that off, allow these to grow out 2 growths, and then you get in and thin them back to only 3 coming out there. So you don't want dense growth again here. And you let those come out, and after they start to swell buds and make the 3rd growth, then you don't need a pair of pruning shears. As soon as that bud is just starting to push out, you just rub it off with your thumb while it's still soft. And that will cause it to branch again there at the end of the 2nd growth. And if you keep doing that and you're very observant, you can get that tree to fruiting size in 3 years easily, sometimes 2 on fast growing ones, but you don't have to do a lot of cutting if you do a lot of just budding.
Okay. Laura wanted to know if you could share the name of that insecticidal soap, the brand.
Oh, it's the one I buy is Impede. And I buy it in 2.5-gallon jugs, but remember, I have a lot of fruit trees. There are plenty of insecticidal soaps on sale at any of the nurseries. Safer is a common one. It's expensive. The Impede, if you got together with your friends, you could buy a 2.5-gallon jug. I think it's available at Helena out in Immokalee for about $90 for a jug. And if you bought that much Safer, it would be $300. So, I mean, buying at wholesale, but you got to buy the bigger quantities, and dividing them up. It's not a dangerous compound. It's just Castile soap is all it is. Don't buy these unlabeled fad soaps that people are selling. They don't work. Okay. I bought a jug once. It wouldn't even drown spider mites. It was lousy, but they sell it. It's almost like a cult. So sorry, but if somebody's offended, but it's for real. I believe in facts. I'm sorry.
We have 2 questions here about how do you spell the name of that minor element fertilizer?
Oh, KEY-PLEX 350. Again, you can buy jugs of it out at the farm supply places in Immokalee. I happen to buy mine from Helena because I buy enough stuff that they'll deliver here. And again, it's not a hazardous chemical. It doesn't have a hazmat statement on it. And you can just divide it up in jars among yourselves and it'll cost you a lot less. Keyplex is about $200 for 2.5 gallons, but you only use it a 1/2 tablespoon per gallon. And it will last a long time, and it does an amazing job. I like products that work.
Great.
Okay.
We still have 10 minutes for questions, so I'm just going to go through the rest of these. So next question from Susan is, can you ripen mangoes in a paper bag?
I'm not sure that does much. I've tried both ways, and I don't see any big difference in the timing. The whole thing is harvesting the fruit at the right time. Kit tends to color way before it's ready to pick. And if you harvest it, it might take 6 weeks for it to ripen, and it won't be as good. So you need to learn when your trees actually have mature fruit on them. And sometimes early on, the best thing to do is, if you think a mango might be ripening, is to sacrifice one, pick it and cut it open and see if the flesh, while it's still hard, is yellow. If it's yellow, it will ripen.
Julietta wants to know, if we have a mango tree in our backyard, what's an easy way to identify what kind of mango tree it is without any type of DNA analysis?
Oh, well, I mean, you can bring a fruit to somebody that knows mangoes you know, make some friends or go to one of the tropical fruit club meetings and see if someone can identify it for you. That's the easiest way. And there's groups in Fort Myers, Bonita Springs, and Naples. So you should have access. And they're actually all the way up the coast on both sides if some of you are away from here.
Hershey wants to know, can the insecticidal soap manufactured by a company in St. James near Fort Myers good enough? Can it be used safely?
It can be used safely. It just doesn't do anything. I'll probably get in trouble for that, but it did not work for me.
Yeah, we'll make sure to get everyone a copy of this presentation. Amy wants to know your thoughts on Tommy Atkins, Edward, and ice cream mangoes.
Are you sure? Tommy Atkins to me is the red delicious apple of mangoes. It's absolutely gorgeous. You can pick them early and transport them huge distances, and 6 weeks later they'll ripen, and it's a lousy mango. You could go bowling with them and still ripen them. If it's your favorite mango, plant it. It tends to be big. I just think you can do a lot better. You should taste it side by side with some of the mangoes I recommended. Now, what was the other ones?
Ice cream, Tommy Atkins, Edward, and I also have 2 extra notes here wondering about Angie and Floragon.
Okay, so let's, we did Tommy Atkins. Ice cream is an okay mango. It doesn't have much in the way of disease problems. Its main flaw to me is it's a tiny little mango. And as I told you, I don't like to waste my time peeling little tiny fruits. That's why I don't have a Silas Wood sapodilla. You know, you get 1 tablespoon of flesh out of it. It's just a waste of space. And that's how I think about ice cream. But it is a very small tree. So if it's your favorite mango and all you can plant is a small tree, then do it. Next is
Edward.
Edward. Edward is like Kent. It has some of the worst anthracnose problems of any mango in Florida. It's a delicious mango, but the only place that Edward truly flourishes is in the coastal deserts of Peru. And when you see mangoes for sale from there, they're likely to be Edward. And the reason they do so well is because they never get water on the flowers. Here in South Florida, the flowers drop from sooty mold, from powdery mildew, and they get sooty mold on the leaves, and then the fruit get anthracnose, and it's just a waste of space mango. Delicious, but waste of space.
The other 2 are Angie and Floragon.
Okay. Floragon's good. It's a decent mango. It's still available. It's a mid-season. I have no problem with Floragon, but it is an old variety and there are better ones available. But again, you got to taste. If it's your mango, then go for it. You can go buy one. Angie was a hot item mango back between 2000 and 2010, and people rapidly fell out of love with it. It's a hybrid of Kerry and Edward. It does not have the disease problems of Edward, but it has extremely brittle wood, and it breaks up just in a downdraft from a thunderstorm. I get very few fruit on one that I have still because most years the limbs break off, and I walk out there and we've had a thunderstorm at night and there are the fruit lying on the ground and the limbs broken off the tree. So I don't recommend that anybody plant Angie just because it's a dysfunctional plant.
Okay. Becky wants to know if you sell mango trees to individuals.
I don't have a nursery. I will tell you the 2 nurseries that have the nicest mango trees in South Florida, and that's Fruitscapes on Pine Island and Pine Island Nursery over in Homestead. And truth be told, They both buy most of their mangoes from Zill High Performance Plants, which, as I told you, is a wholesale nursery. So go to Fruitscapes. It's a beautiful day trip, or go to Pine Island Nursery, and they've got really good varieties. And what I've been doing, since we're doing a lot of these mangoes at the botanical garden, is I've been feeding Steve Kokura varieties for him to feed to Gary Zill to propagate, and he's trying to stock these trees. Now, it's been a rough summer here, and a lot of people decided to plant fruit trees, so his stocks are very low right now, but they still do have quite a few mangoes. And I haven't been over to see what Eric has got at Pine Island Nursery, so I don't know.
Okay. Susan wants to know, when does the lemon zest mango mature?
It's early mid-season, so June, July.
Okay.
It's over with now, but this was an early year.
Yeah, it was an early year.
Yeah.
Amy wants to know, can mangoes grow and produce in large planters?
It's extremely difficult, because it's like growing a giant bonsai. You have to make absolutely certain that that tree doesn't dry out. If you leave it in the charge of somebody that's not a fruit person or a plant person, they will miss watering it at a critical point, and that tree will crumb. People come to the nurseries all the time saying, can I grow this and that in a pot? And over the years, I've just finally decided to tell people no.
And I want to defer to Doug here. I don't know if you want to, we have about 14 or 15 more questions. Do you want to continue on with the questions, or do you want to move on to another presentation and we can come back to it? Totally up to you.
I think we should have run one more question by Stephen, and then and it happens to be one about pruning, and then move on. The question was about training branches by roping them down with weights so the branches are more horizontal. I think Norris did some work, research on that and published on it.
Yeah, and you can do that. And there are varieties where the growth tends to be more upright, like Valencia Pride, Tommy Atkins, where you really should do that. But a lot of varieties, particularly the Julie seedlings, naturally tend to branch laterally, and you don't have to do any of that. Just do your regular good pruning, and it's going to go wide. Graham, you could grow Graham so that it was actually 6 feet tall and 10 feet wide. You'd have to prop up the fruits, but it wants to go sideways.
Okay, well, thanks, Stephen. That was awesome. Shout out to Stephen.
My pleasure.